14 years ago, I was not yet a book artist. I'd done a lot of other things. And I walked into a classroom at Santa Fe Community College to take Book Arts 1. And I was lucky enough to sit next to a woman who turned out to be one of the most generous, kind, and knowledgeable people and had been teaching art, was a well-renowned printmaker and stuff like that. And boy, was I lucky to sit next to Rosalie Gouletas. Um, Ro is an instructor at Santa Fe Community College in both the four credit program and also for um, continuing education and maybe the New Art Academy. She can tell us more about that. And today, like I said, she's very generous with her knowledge and time. She is going to talk to us about her favorite things, tips and things. So without further ado, Ro, please take it away.
You. Well, all those kind things that you said about me, it takes one to know one. And thank you for joining me for my favorite tips and tools and picks. And after years of experience teaching students, learning from my colleagues like Linda and Julie, and taking workshops as a lifelong learner, and simply finding better ways to do things. So I want to start with something that a student brought to my attention during this semester. He's a retired engineer. His name is Phil. And I had no idea that there was a difference between a rule and a ruler. And obviously, if you're using your own at home, it doesn't really make any difference. But if you're using somebody else's, you're in your workshop, it can make a difference. So a ruler begins from, if it is zero here where you start, and I know that there's a reflection. Oh, I think that's better. If it starts from there, and so you get a true measurement if you're putting this down and you go to 5 and you're really getting 5. Now, a rule is, oh, excuse me, that's a rule. But the word that we use as ruler, if there's a little space between 1 and where you're starting, you're not really starting at 1. So if you are at 5, you're going to have a little extra space. And sometimes that makes a difference because you need things to be exact. So it's always important, if you're using somebody else's ruler or you're at a workshop where they're providing it, that you glance to see if you're using a rule or a ruler, because they do have a slight difference. And I think a lot of people think that they're interchangeable, and I did, and they're not. So there's that. There's also, if you're using a metal ruler, it's nice for it to have cork on the back because it holds it still. So all that is fine, but that's not my favorite rule or rulers. Now here's one, and I am a person who doesn't love math. I don't think I got one semester of B in math, and other than that, I always got C's. The only thing I got a B in was geometry because it is kind of artistic. So I love the center finding ruler because you look where you want your center and you look of 4 inches on each side or whatever. So you can get things perfectly centered. It makes things so much easier than measuring, 3/8 of an inch and all of that. So that's great. And yet that's not my favorite either. My favorite is a see-through centering ruler. They're the best because you can see your whole image through it and not guess exactly what's underneath you, etc. And it's just wonderful. And this particular one is made by Westcott. And it's also nice because you have this line in here. So if you want a straight line with your pencil, you just put it put the pencil there and mark the line. It's also wonderful because it also has these dots. So you can mark in those, whether it's an inch, etc., where you want to poke your hole for your awls for your signatures. So it does a lot of things in one. Once you have one of these, you never want to go back to the other ones, which are also fine, but this is the best. I just love it. Bone folders. And some of you have heard me talk about bone folders before. So bone folders are rarely ever made of bone. I guess that's what they used to be in the olden days. And most people probably have plastic bone folders. And another recent favorite is the, what do they call this? Light wood. Bamboo. Bamboo. But none of those are my favorites. And what I use for me all of the time is a Teflon bone folder. And there's a lot of wonderful advantages about this. This is a Teflon bone folder. This particular one is by Craft Treat. And I love it because with this Teflon bone folder, there is no stick. There's no sticky glue from your previous projects. And to give you an example, see all the sticky glue in this one? It always looks really clean and nice because it's like Teflon done. No sticky stuff comes from your glue onto it. It also protects because no ink or paint. So it always looks really fresh and new and good. Also, it does not leave a shiny burnish mark. So with most bone folders, if you use either of these, you should put a piece of newsprint or something down and not make direct contact because you can get a shiny burnish mark. With this, you can have direct contact and no residue, no shiny mark. That's a big advantage because you don't have a piece of paper that you're not seeing through, etc., and you make direct contact. I also love, compared to the other ones, the shape of it. It's really comfortable in your hand. And also, the last thing is that when you're doing book covers and things like that, these edges on both sides have different advantages that you're able to use that you don't get with a typical bone folder. Now, they are a little more expensive. A typical bone folder will cost you $5 to $10. These, depending on where you get them, are $15 to $20. When I first started using them, they were more like $20. But now, several companies make them, so you can get them for more like $15. So I love them. And then scissors. So many people, and cutting instruments, but we'll start with scissors. Many people, just use, and these are Fiskars, so it's a well-known brand, but many people just use things like this, or they get something from the Dollar Tree because it is only $1.25. I don't use these. I use scissors that are specifically made for paper cutting. A lot of us use collage in our book arts, and these are great. And there's many brands. Here's 3 different ones that I have. And they're great because one, they're small. So it's not clumsy. You can be very exact. The other thing about them that's different than other scissors is the tip is very precise because it's so sharp. So you can cut very exact into your shapes and have a lot of control. Also, they are typically made with some sort of either rubberized or soft plastic, which is comfortable on the hand for cutting when you're doing a lot of collage. So that's the only type I use. I don't use regular scissors anymore. And it makes a huge difference in the precision of my cuts. Now, when I first started bookmaking, and I learned from my teachers like Marilyn Chambers, I used to use these really beautiful scalpels. They're gorgeous, and I don't use them anymore, and I'm going to tell you why. One is you lose the top pretty quickly, or I do, I should say. I have a tendency to put it in a jar with my pens and pencils and markers and things like that. And sooner or later, I stab myself. And then you start learning once you lose that top to do things like put a cork on. So, but even that cork, it's going to dull it when you're using it. Also, a problem that I found when I had those is, the little blades or whatever, it's easy to order the wrong ones. Or if you don't have your backups with you, what happens is they start to get dull and then your cuts are not precise anymore. And that can throw you way off and just frustrate you and maybe even make a poor mistake that you're sorry about in your book. So I have switched over to, and there's two ways to go. Because I teach at Santa Fe Community College and I let a lot of my students use my blade cutters, and some of them, walk away, or sometimes they break them, or sometimes they just get broken. I use these type of inexpensive ones now. Now I can get these for 70 cents at like a hardware store, Harbor Freight to be specific. But I like these because one, I can close it without having an extra device. And two, there's these little slats in them. So as it dulls, I don't have to have a backup or make sure I have the right needle, but I can just, with a small pliers, take that away and still be sharp and keep going. So it lasts for a long time. I also noticed with some other things that the holders with the type I used to use, they can get wobbly and not be accurate. And so I love these. Now, if I was just doing it for myself and not teaching, I would not buy the 70-cent one. I would buy a more expensive one that still has the same framework. But for my purposes, I buy these. So, give them to my students. If they come back to me, great. If they don't, no big deal for 70 cents. But as much as I loved having a scalpel, felt so powerful, I don't use those type anymore. And I think I saw a note somebody's talking about a brand that's a better quality that they purchased. So that's great. And is booklet stapler. So most of us do pamphlet stitches and things like that. But there's a booklet stapler that I'm about to show you. It's a binding device that's great for simple and easy books when you're working with children, because sometimes some of us go to libraries and work with children, showing them how to put together books, or intimidated beginners. And they're great for mass production if you're selling simple books at shows and you just want a huge stack of them. And this substitutes for a pamphlet stitch. And what it is, it's a stapler, but it has this fold here. So if I put my book in here, I put it right at that line and I staple down, and I can have maybe one over here and one over there. So let's say it's 3 staples, and it works great for that use. And the difference between this and just using a straight stapler is that you have, and that's why they call it a pamphlet staple, you have that curve. And so it wouldn't be standing in your hand, it would be on the thing, and then you just press it down. It's wonderful for those specific purposes. The type that I get is a boss stitch. So many people have wonderful studios and maybe they do all of their work in the studios, but many people go out of their studios to like the school studio, or you're going to a salon workshop in person. And so or you're traveling and you still make art when you're traveling. So you have travel must kits. Now, some of us a lot of us for carrying big items or bulky items have a travel case with rollers that's like a little suitcase that's specifically meant for crafts. So that's great. I've also seen some people use just little travel size suitcases that you're able to bring on planes, the lightweight ones, and that works great too. And then sometimes you're going to a salon that just for a specific thing and you don't need everything you have. You just need certain things because you know you're going to make a certain book. And there's things, or you can put this in the big roller case as well. So some of the things that are nice in that is you can have a travel kit like this that has a lot of pockets for people who like things really organized, and put your items in there. And you can have that and or both of them together, a little zip pocket that you put your things in. And then another item that you can have, which is nice, is clear see-through. So you can see what you have. And all of those things are really nice. I know for myself, I like to have, with most of my art supplies, three. I want to have one thing I leave in my studio. I want to have one that's always packed to go to school. And then I want to have a third one that's for when I go to workshops and things like that, so that I'm not like gathering everything all the time from everywhere and then forgetting something, of course, that I need. So other things I like to put in my travel kit is a mini mat board. Here's two different sizes. And the smaller one I did get at the Dollar Tree for $1.25. So that's nice to have that, because sometimes you go some places and they'll have a table, but it might be a wood table or whatever, and you don't want to use your blade and be cutting through something. So it's nice to bring your own mat. So another thing that I like, and I bring with me, this one is made by Fiskars. It's nice, is a mini cutting board. And this is great. And so, you know, I just go like that. I put my paper in, I have all my measurements, and it's really nice to have your own. So that's another thing I recommend. Now, this is a little bigger and bulkier, but this is for accordion books, and this is a scoring board. So I got my first one at Michael's, and I got a Martha Stewart. And now there's a lot more companies that put them out, but at that time, that was it. And it's great for doing accordions because it gives you the measurements right here. And so I've got a couple. I've got my home one, I've got one at school, and I've tried some different brands. One of the things that I recommend if you don't have one and you choose to get one is, see this right here? This has in it a specialized bone folder for creating the accordion books. It is not as sharp as a bone folder. So there's less chance of you accidentally cutting through your paper because of the way that is. So because it's specialized specifically for this, I like having this holder. Another one that I have at school, it does have that specialized holder, but it's just, it doesn't have anything holding it in. It's just a little hole in there that you put in it. So it's easy for that to get lost or used for other purposes and not make it back in here. So I do recommend getting this type. It's not that you can't use a bone folder, but this is specialized for a scoreboard, and it does work a little better. So a couple of good tips taught to me by bag ladies, my own fellow board officer colleagues, Julie Filatoff and Linda Zwick, that make sewn stitch bindings easier. So one is that I used to, when I was sewing through something, I'd like struggle sometimes to get it to go through. And sometimes I'd have to grab a pair of pliers, maybe if I was going through leather or something, and really struggle to get it through. And Julie turned me on to this. And this is Shelf Liner Kitchen. You buy it in sheets, and I think you can get it at the Dollar Tree, and just cut it down into little rectangles. And it's stretchy, and it really holds the needle, so you can pull it through easily. It's like, it's wonderful. Now, as you all probably, most of us probably use tapestry needles because most of us use wax thread. So it's got a big eye to fit through there, which is great. But something that Linda Zwick turned me on to, and I only have one because it was the one that Linda Zwick gave me, and so I have to order more. And in putting back together my packet, you're always missing one thing, so I don't really have it. But it is called it's called a curved sewing needle, and it's like a half moon. And it's wonderful because it's more adept and flexible for hand stitching, where a straight needle has difficulty or can't pass at all. So I highly recommend that everybody get some of those. And I looked it up since I wasn't able to show you, and it's easy to find on the internet. So I looked it up about an hour ago. You'll have no problem finding. So I recommend you get one of those and try it out for some of your stitches. Now we're going to get to my favorite subject matter, and that is artist adhesives. I feel like I am the queen of artist adhesives. And artist adhesives can be wet, dry, glues, tapes, double-sided adhesives. And you choose them all for the durability, the quality, and the specific material bonding. And I use a variety of adhesives for different purposes. And I'm going to share with you, going from the smallest ones to the biggest ones, my favorites and why. So I prefer dry adhesives to wet adhesives, but there are some things that you do need to use wet adhesives for. So I'll go through that, but I'm going to start with my very favorite one. So for things like tip-ins and things that are lightweight, instead of using a glue stick, I use this specific, it's a glue runner, and I like this specific brand called Glue Tape. And you don't buy it by the one, you buy it by the multiples. It comes in different colors. It's fun. There's many brands out there, but this is the one that I like. And they come down to, if you divide it per pack, what you're paying per glue tape is a little over $1 a piece. So they're incredibly economical. Now, some people, and it's important to know this, some people, when they first try it, they don't like it because they said it broke right away, etc. But you cannot take it back and forth. You just bring it towards you, because if you go back and forth, it will instantly break. And of course, that's what I did my first couple of times of using it. But they're wonderful. And the thing I like about dry adhesives is when you have wet adhesives, it tends, with a little bit of time, to buckle, and it doesn't look flat. These always look flat. They're fabulous. Now, there's also, this isn't as easy to find. It used to be, but not. This is permanent, and I use it for collage as well. This is Scotch, which is a good brand, but there's many brands, and it's a tape runner, and they call it repositionable. When you do this, you put it down, and it's down. When you do this, I like it for collage and things like that, because maybe I'm putting together different elements and things like that, and maybe I'm trying to move them around, and I'm not sure where I quite want them. So with this, I can just kind of tack it in the middle, put it in that place, and then gently lift it and change it if I'm not happy with that situation. These aren't as easy to find as these. So that's why I say, I've got this Scotch one, and sometimes I go to Michael's and sometimes I get them online, but sometimes I can't find them at all, and sometimes I can, and I just grab whatever brand I can find because they're not as common as the permanent runners. But, and they are a little more expensive. So that being known. I also like, sometimes I want to add a little pop or 3D, especially like maybe floral elements or whatever. So this I can find very cheap. And so now we're talking about a double-sided adhesive, is I can find these at the Dollar Tree. So it's $1.25. And I think they have like 3 packs, and they might be different sizes. But I like this because it's double-sided. And again, it makes that little pop-up, and it sticks to both sides. So it has a really good use. Now, if I am using a wet adhesive, rather than a glue stick, if I need that for something, or a, or, a jar of Elmer's glue, or even PVA, I like to use something like this. There's a couple of different brands here. This one I did get at the Dollar Tree for $1.25. And this one is by Tombow, which I always think of as Tomboy. And so, they are a specialist in this field. And what I like about them is with regular glue, you often have to put it in a container, then take a paintbrush or a foam brush, and then it's a little sloppy, it gets to the side. I like these. Oh, and then they dry up. So I always try to get everything in small form because you get it in a big quantity, the chances are it's going to dry up really fast and you'll never get through the whole thing. And you're struggling to get to the wet part. With these, see how small the tip is. And I like that because, again, precision, and I don't want it to get out of the area or bleed through or smush through. So these are very precise because they have a tiny tip that your adhesive comes out of. Another favorite that I have gotten recently is I used to use, like if I'm doing something like adding a sculptural element, like an assemblage or something heavier, I used to use E6000. And with E6000, it comes in a pretty big tube, and there's two things, and you pour it out together on a piece of paper or whatever. You combine them together for them to have that, just right stickability. And then they have a big, strong scent. So you have to have a window open. Well, you should have a window open. And they're sloppy and they're messy. Recently, I found B7000. Now you can get this in a big container, but I get a pack of like 6 in these small containers, and I love it. It's not smelly. You don't have to combine two things. And again, it has a small needle, so you can be very precise. And that's been a big winner for me recently. Oh, and what I just did here was the top in here. I almost don't want to take it out because I did it so like that the first time around. But it also has a needle here. So instead of this drying up and clogging, you put this right back in here and it keeps the passage clear. So B7000. Love that. And then I got turned on to this by Maggie Tomei, who's a bag member. And I use this for really strong adhesive when this isn't going to be enough, and then it needs to be really heavy duty. And again, I like the brand Scotch, and there's other brands, and it has refillers. So it's ATG 700. And there's a lot of things that this isn't going to be strong enough for. This is great for, tip-ins and collage, but there's some things that you need heavy duty.
Is
And
it all that wide?
could you, something about how wide it is? Was that the question?
Yeah, is it always that wide? It looks like about an inch. Can you get
No.
different widths?
Thank you for asking. This is a 1/4 inch. This part that holds it is probably an inch, but I think this is at most a 1/2 inch. And yes, I do believe that you can get them in different widths.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Now this, I actually left my spray adhesive at school. So I'm just showing you this to see that you can get in a tube. But this isn't a spray adhesive, this is a varnish. But you can get spray adhesives in a can. And they are also good for several things. I'll show you one thing specifically. So I love this type of paper. And this is an Asian paper. And how they make this is it's sitting up, sitting flat when they're making it. And they have water and it's dripping down and it makes these beautiful lacy holes. Now, if I want to attach this to something, I can't use any of the other adhesives that I've shown you because that stickiness will come out where I don't want it to. So if I'm doing something like this, I will go outside because these do have fumes. You don't want to do this inside. And I will spray it on my surface. And I do wait about a minute for it to get tacky and bring it back in. Then I can go with my bone folder and put it on top of whatever I want. And it's not going to leave the adhesive residue anyplace else. Again, very specific. And then when I'm doing book covers and hard book covers with like Davy board, and then with like raw silk fabric or something that's back that's specifically made for book covers, I use this mounting adhesive. Again, it is double-sided. This particular brand is Remington, and that's what we have now. It comes in, it's about 4 times the size. And I have my partner, cut it down for me, take it to his wood shop and cut it down into manageable sizes. So this is nice. I used to, and Julie knows this, I used to use a different brand, a Scotch adhesive. I actually liked it a little more, but they've stopped making it. So you got to move on to other things when that happens. And what this is, it's really wonderful. And it comes in sheets like this, and it is double-sided. And I tear it wherever I want to cut it, like to be on, let's say, the Davy board with my book cover, and I cut it in the right size, and then I take my bone folder and I press it in, and it's really strong and it holds it in place. I never use any wet adhesives or things like that. I only use something like this, and I highly recommend it. And I even use it to come over the sides where I'm tipping it into the other side of the book, and then I put a decorative piece of paper over that. And I think that's it. So thanks for attending Ro's favorite book art tips and picks, and questions or comments.
Let's see. I
wanted to thank you for explaining how that paper was made, because I love that kind of paper too, and I never knew how it was made. So cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, let's see. On your scoring board, it said, did Ro color in certain measurements on her scoring board? It looked like some of your things had different colors.
That is just paper. Still left in there.
But I have done that. I took a very fine line permanent marker and I just did it on the 6-inch one so that I could so that when you're doing, there's times when that's just really helpful to be able to see that line, sort of thing. So
I could completely see that. Oh, I wanted to tell you, even though this is my favorite day-to-day one, when you asked about that, and I said it's just like the paper left in it. For Asian papers, like this or other Asian papers, and this is why every artist has, probably 8 or 10 different adhesives. This will stick to the Asian paper and tear off. So it's not good for that. So, everything has its uses of what it works well with and it doesn't. And this doesn't work for everything. And so I'll tell you up front that it's a little sketchy with those beautiful Asian papers. You probably want a different choice for that.
Cool. With lots of positive comments, Ro, lots of great tips and information. Thank you. Wow, so many good ideas and products. Thank you, Ro. Great tips. Excellent. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ro. That was great. And then and there were lots of comments in the chat. So be sure to look at the chat, everybody, because there were product links and places where you can get things. And yeah, so that was great. Anybody have just question? If you got a question for Ro,
I do see a question from Carolyn. She said, do you have good ventilation and wear a mask with spray adhesives? They are not now forbidden in many schools and universities. So when in my studio, it goes right out to a back courtyard, and we do not do the spray adhesives in the building at all? So that's a great question. Thank you for asking. And so even in my house, I won't do it in my house. I will go outside in the fresh air. And, it's not a bad idea to wear a mask in addition, but I wouldn't use the spray adhesive indoors at all. So thanks for that question, so I could clarify that.
Yeah. And there are some, they're kind of hard to find. There are some that are supposedly don't have that scent, but
But
they're a little bit harder to find. Yeah.
but even if they don't have the scent, because I was a painter before I became a printmaker, and when I was growing up, it had a lot of fumes when you would use
Oh.
turpentine, things like that. And then they created low odor turpentine, but that doesn't mean it's good for your lungs.
Exactly. Still don't use it in the house.
So here's a question from Judy Crawford, and it said, do you know of an adhesive for bonding metal to metal? So again, with some of them, I would use this E7000. And if you get into like really heavy stuff, and I do make assemblages from rusty objects and everything like that, then you probably do need to get into the E6000. But this is a good in between, this B7000. So when I'm able to use this, I do. If it's something really heavy duty, yes, I will switch back to that E6000 versus the B7000. Okay, let me see.
Hi, Ro. It's Leanne. Oh, hi there. I do a lot of jewelry, and when I don't want to use a hot solder because I'm using paper or something like that, I use something my father told me about probably 50 years ago. It's called JB Weld. It's a two-part epoxy. It turns into a grayish color, so it kind of matches the metal, and you have to saw or cut it apart. It is stuck forever.
I will put a star next to that.
The reason
Yes.
I know about it is because when I was young and I lived in a cold climate, every summer I would have to go back home and have my father help me fix my car, which had been eaten away by the salt. And this is what we used, along with things like cat food can covers and you name it, to fix to fix the holes in my car.
You. Oh, so another tip is there's a site called
Don't stick your fingers
this to that. So you can say, I want to glue this to that. You can say metal, to glass, or paper to glass. Put any words you want, and it will give you some different recommendations.
No, that's a good
This
idea.
to that. And it doesn't cost anything. I also see, and Julie, yes, I like this comment. She uses a tiny ball stylus with the scoreboard, and that's a great idea. I like that a lot because it doesn't have a sharp edge at all. It's a ball.
Yeah.
I wrote, I have one other comment that's really
Yes,
good too.
yes.
One thing that I discovered as a wheelchair user in a not very large studio, I found legs that have wheels on them. And so I can move my table around wherever I want in my studio, get on various sides of it, and I can also lock it. I wouldn't advise leaning against it really strongly, but it is absolutely terrific because I can work from both sides of the table.
I
And
like
the
that.
wheels can be found at IKEA. They come legs and wheels. You can just put them on any board.
Oh,
Love IKEA.
yeah. I hauled kitchen drawer organizers home from Germany via IKEA. We're still using them 20 years later.
Yep. I have scissors from IKEA, German
Yeah,
other German scissors that are really sharp.
gotta love IKEA.
I just
Mm.
wanted to make a comment about, can you hear me,
Mhm.
Rebecca?
Yeah.
About the spray glue. I had the experience in the 70s. I was doing collage and I used, at that time, 3M spray glue. And I was making collages for about 5 years and my immune system totally broke down. And I cannot emphasize enough the importance of wearing masks and being outside and, every precaution that you can possibly take if you're using spray glue. I personally don't ever use it anymore.
It would be my least favorite of all of the adhesives is to go to the spray for that reason. It's like little vapors in the air. And like I said, I only use it for very, very specific things like this that I don't think anything else works for. And I completely agree with you, Rebecca. I only use it as a last resort. I use because of health issues. Or developing health issues if you didn't have them to start with. So I completely agree with you. I think that it's a last resort adhesive.
Great. Anybody else? Thanks, Ro. That was great. Lots of ideas.
I appreciate you ladies, as Patricia Pierce would say.